Yeah, thank you, Savannah. And of course, thank you everyone for inviting me. I'm always happy to talk about PKG all the time. So I'm glad to be here. I am just going to share my screen because I do have a little presentation put together. Okay, can everyone see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm just going to speak a little bit about my PKG experience. I'm going to talk about some of the programs that I participated in, how they kind of impacted my journey at MIT, and how they've also impacted what I'm doing now. So the first and foremost program that I kind of participated in was actually freshman year, and it was called the Spring Break Alternative Program. And specifically, I participated in the Environmental Justice and Community Development Program that occurs in Camden, New Jersey. And this, as it says in the name, happens over spring break. So it was a week-long program. It was an immersive cohort program, and we did a lot of pretty much hands-on service work. And we collaborated with CFET, which was our community partner. And it was something that I loved so much my first year that I returned again my second year as a student leader. And then I hope to do it a third time, but that was when the pandemic hit. So we kind of had to modify it into a virtual program. The next thing that I did was the IAP Health Internship Program. And this occurs over IAP, which I'm sure all of you may know happens over January. So this is a month-long program. And I specifically participated as a program intern in the autism program at Boston Medical Center, or BMC. And this program was really cool because I got a lot of exposure to healthcare because I was working in a hospital setting, but I also learned a lot about kind of the societal context of healthcare and how health is not just determined by the treatment that you get in a hospital setting. We learned a lot about social determinants of health and other like social related health needs that BMC kind of treats for their patients. Specifically autism, I learned a lot about that too, since I was working in the autism program. So that was a really great kind of career exposure internship program that I had through PKG. The third thing that I did, which I actually did during my senior year, was the social impact internship, kind of similar to the IAP one. This one actually occurred over a semester. So I did it during my spring semester. And I worked at the Florida Institute for Health Innovation doing environmental health equity work. It was very research, kind of data-driven focused. And I was working in a nonprofit, which I've never worked for before. So that was really great to work with a small team who had, little to no resources, but were trying to tackle really big issues with health outcomes associated with natural disasters and community and emergency preparedness work. So that was really great for me to kind of have some experience on that end. And then kind of throughout those three programs, I did have some experience being a student leader and an ambassador for PKG. And that pretty much just meant that I was being kind of a liaison between the students and the community partners as well as PKG. So I helped interview applicants for these programs. I helped assist with training sessions because PKG makes sure that their students are prepared for the programs and the internships that they're about to embark on. And as you may notice, I have some asterisks here just to indicate the many times that I've participated in these programs. PKG always wanted me to come back, and I was always happy to. So I just wanted to reflect on here. Okay, and this slide is just to show some pictures because I've had some very fond memories to these programs. And as I've kind of mentioned before, a lot of the programs that PKG offers are phrased as like immersive cohort programs. And I cannot say enough how special these programs are because of that. So I have pictures here from the Spring Break program, which as I mentioned, was only a week, but I had such great bonds with these students throughout that experience. And then the bottom right is showing the internship that I had at BMC in the autism program. So I just wanted to show some nice pictures because there are some nice memories there. So all of my time that I spent in PKG, what did I learn and how did it impact my experience? So I kind of broke it up into 3 buckets because I feel like there's just so much that I learned and I obtained from being involved with the PKG program. So the first bucket is my personal development. I think the big things that I kind of took away from PKG is learning how to ask difficult questions, specifically why. And I think this is something that I learned a lot in my spring break alternative program because we were working very closely with communities in Camden, New Jersey that we were not very familiar with. And a lot of it was having very difficult conversations about certain social issues and inequality. So I think that was definitely something that I gained as a participant and also as a student leader. Another thing is that I think I've definitely grown and developed a passion for equity and DEI. And I wrote down privilege, power, and positionality because I know this is something that PKG always tells their students to kind of pay attention to. And I think especially with service work, I think it's very important to know who you are and what your identity is before you're even going into a new space where you're trying to interact with other people. And that was definitely something that I took away from that. And then some other things, I've definitely become more empathetic and open-minded about certain issues and how to collaborate with different people. And of course, also more service and mission-oriented, which is pretty much PKG's mission. And then professionally and career-wise, through PKG, I've gotten a lot of exposure to career fields that I feel like I would not have been exposed to if I didn't participate in the program. And I absolutely fell in love with public health, and I got exposed to that through the IEP health internship program with BMC. And so that was something that professionally throughout even my MIT experience and my MIT career, I wanted to kind of learn more about and deep dive into. I also developed skills to analyze complex social issues. And I think that encompasses both soft and hard skills, which is something that I think PKG really does a great job with, showing that MIT students can use their STEM skills and their technical skills, but also it's important to kind of learn what are the other skills that you can learn to kind of tackle these more complex issues. I also gained very meaningful relationships with my supervisors. I still kind of keep tabs with one of them now. And whenever I returned as a student leader, it was always like kind of like a reunion. So I feel like having that kind of humanity in the work and in that space was really great. And I also am super motivated now to pursue social impact careers, which is, I'll talk about that later into what I'm doing now, and also thinking about system level change solutions. So not just thinking about, what can we do on the ground, but what can we do as like a top-down approach for all these complex issues. And then throughout my MIT experience, I participated in PKG, as I mentioned, since freshman year. So it of course, influenced my coursework, my extracurriculars. And I think overall, it really just sparked my interest in social issues. So after doing some of the programs at PKG, I went on and took on classes about food insecurity, criminal justice, activism, and I've highlighted in that second bullet too, like anthropology and WGS classes. And those were hands down probably the most interesting and exciting classes that I've ever taken, other than my STEM classes. So I thought that was something that I didn't really expect. And I am so grateful that I had that journey. And I also, in those classes, of course, gained a lot more ethical and societal context to kind of the things that I was learning in my STEM classes. I also kind of pursued health policy and public health internships throughout my time at MIT. And that is something that, as I mentioned, is related to kind of the fact that I've gained meaningful relationships with my supervisors and also were able to develop professionally in these fields. And then, as I mentioned before, PKG has training sessions for their students for these programs. And every single time I did them, I learned something new, and I realized that I was really incorporating them into the work that I was doing outside of academics. So kind of in the clubs that I was involved in. I was very involved with first gen low income advocacy at MIT, and a lot of the things that I learned about DEI, service, all that stuff, I totally put to work in that realm, and it was something that I think really made me feel fulfilled and really made my MIT experience really special. So what am I doing now? So I just graduated last semester, so 2021 alum. I'm working full time now as a health research associate at Mathematica, and it's pretty much mainly the work that they do is health policy contracts with federal health government agencies, so Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Department of Health and Human Services, and CDC. And the work that I'm specifically interested in is working to advance health equity for marginalized populations through program implementation, monitoring, and evaluation projects. I did not expect that I would be at a place at Mathematica at all, even senior year, I would say. But I think, as I mentioned, PKG has really influenced my path and my journey at MIT. And I've spoken a lot to Jill, actually, and Sarah Bouchard at PKG, and they've helped me realize that this is something that I actually really want to do and that I could do it. And I had the tools to do it because PKG prepared me for it. And so I'm really happy that I'm in this place right now. On the side, outside of work, right now I'm actually volunteering as a EC to help interview MIT applicants for the class of 2026 now. And I think this has been actually a really interesting experience for me because I, out of all of the many ECs, feel that I really want to understand like a student's passions in terms of how are they matched with MIT's mission. And so a lot of the times I'll ask them, you know, what is the problem in the world that they would most like to solve? And I think all of them pretty much will say really big, complex social issues. And so I think it's really important for me and for, you know, all MIT students coming in before they come to campus to start thinking about these things, because MIT's mission is to make the world a better place and to create a better world. And I think a lot of that is thinking about what are these complex issues and how can we solve them. And so I think I'm really fortunate that I'm able to do that and speak to these amazing students throughout this process. And then later down the line, as I mentioned, I'm pursuing public health. I would like to earn a MPH or MUP later down the line after I work for a few years. And I would love to do policy advocacy work in a government or nonprofit setting. This is kind of what I'm thinking right now, but I feel like my plans for the future always change. But this is kind of where I'm at. And as you can see, I definitely think that the whole service and mission-oriented aspect of what I want to pursue in my career is definitely due to my experience at PKG, and I'm very grateful for that. And that is pretty much it. I hope I didn't go over time. So I think we're doing questions at the end. Is that right?
Yes, thank you, Eleane. This was so fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, we'll go through everyone and then we'll have questions all together at the end.
Okay, perfect.
But thank you so much for your presentation. That was fantastic. Next, Ivana, we would love to have you share a little bit.
Yes. I also have slides. They are definitely not as detailed as Elaine's, but I hope you'll enjoy them nonetheless. So I'll share my screen. Or actually, hold on, let me get the slides ready. Okay. Can everyone see? Oh, it's still loading. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, hi, I'm Ivana. Just very quick stats about me. I'm from Chicago. Obviously, I went to MIT, and then I'm now currently living in Brooklyn in New York City. And I graduated with my degree in computer science, data science, and economics, which I know is a mouthful, but I swear it's a real degree. And then I also got minors in math and public policy. And I'm currently a software engineer at Flatiron Health, which I can also elaborate more on what they do later on. And I would say my main, so I actually remembered, like, as Eleane was talking, other things, because the PKG Center has so many like opportunities. I think there's actually more that I've done than just these two things. But the primary, like my prime experiences with the PKG Center are that I was like one of the original participants in like the inaugural Navajo Nation trip, and then I was a 2020 IAP fellow, so which I will talk more about, like those two experiences. So everything else is just pictures from here on out. So in 2019, or summer 2019, so summer after my sophomore year, because I also just graduated in 2021. There was this new opportunity for the PKG Center. Mind you, also, like I only really discovered the PKG Center sophomore year. So I got involved pretty quickly on. Flora introduced me, which I'm sure she can talk more about it later. And the Navajo Nation trip was essentially like a cultural immersion trip to Navajo Nation in New Mexico and Arizona. And it was like 4 or 5 days with a small group of like 7 and 2 PKG staff members. And we really just got to know people, got to meet a lot of activists on the reservation, or people that are doing things to help solve some of the prime issues that people are facing on the reservation. So a lot of it was focused around like water. So we went to Dig Deep, which is a water like advocacy group, and like all the things that they're trying to do to like help like mitigate like the problems that people have with water on the reservation. And then like a lot of it was like honestly us like reflecting, talking, and like discussing these issues. So here are some photos. We did a lot of things. There's Ariana and Danny being, anyway. Yeah, and then the next thing I did was pretty soon after. So I had found basically an externship. So MIT, over IAP, there's externships that you can do. I basically found an externship that I wanted to do that was in San Juan in Puerto Rico. That was like vaguely described as like a data analyst type of role. And this was something that had always interested me because I had spent like every summer in college interning as a software engineer. And this was always something that I always wanted to like see what working somewhere else like that was not tech would have been like. Especially this was like a beautiful opportunity. It was like a data, like something that was like technical, but then like at a nonprofit. And also like I'm Puerto Rican and I've never been to Puerto Rico. So it was just like an all in all, like very, very like informative experience for me. So I applied for the externship and I got the funding, which basically paid for my lodging and flights and food for the month that I was in San Juan. Unfortunately, the second day I got there, there was like a very large earthquake. So kind of derailed the rest of the externship. Originally, I was supposed to be working on like tackling vulnerability like issues that the island had faced post Maria, but then it ended up being like a lot vaguer and just like general disaster, like vulnerability to things. And it's like, what data sets would you need to like figure out like how vulnerable a community is? Like what data would you need to like assess like whether a community is like prepared for disaster? et cetera, et cetera. And so that was like a lot of the things that I had done during that externship. That's a photo of me when we went to the south side of the island to help basically serve as translators for people post the earthquake. Oh, and that's my mom because she came to visit me. So that was nice. She's the Puerto Rican one, so that makes sense. And then those are all the photos I have actually. So I guess I can stop sharing and just like also talk generally now about like how everything comes together and like how PKG Center affected the things I did. So I think that like one of the reasons I definitely got a minor in public policy was because of the PKG Center. I think it was just kind of like, I really liked the things we were talking about. I really liked like, you know, like the power, privilege, positionality, like talks that like Eleane was talking about, that like they really grind into you with every program you do at the PKG Center. And I wanted to talk more about it. So I ended up getting my minor in public policy, which ended up having like a very vague educational focus because that was something that I was interested in. And so, yeah, I did that. And I'm definitely, unfortunately, probably not utilizing that now because I am a software engineer. But the very nice thing is that I think one of the other things is that I was having like a really like conflicted issue with working in tech as a concept because I really liked the things that I was doing at the PKG Center. And I also like wanted to like, you know, do this like tech for good thing that I definitely got to experience over the externship in Puerto Rico and like through some of the other things. And it after a lot of talking to people and looking for other opportunities, I was able to like, I like really, really love the company that I work for now because they're basically a health tech company. So I work for Flatiron Health in New York City, and their main product is like, they're like in cancer tech. And so they build an like electronic health record that basically is cancer focused. And the whole thing is just to make the whole goal, like not to get too into the technical weeds of it, the whole goal of the company is just kind of like to make oncologists' lives easier so that they can spend more time with their patients and give better treatment, which works out for me perfectly because that was always something that was like concerning for me, and that was something that like I was really battling with. So I'm really thankful to have taken these opportunities to like have had like lots and lots of reflection time, because a lot of the things I had to do as well as part of being these programs is like you have to write reflections, talk about things, a lot of group sessions, which I probably wouldn't have had devoted as much time to reflection as I would have otherwise. And then I also, so that's like kind of me wrapping that up. And then the last thing that I remember that I did after the fact is that like there was, I don't know if you guys are still doing this, but there was like the new thing that was like a 3-unit class that was like being offered to like freshmen that I had done. I forgot, I took it with Flora. I don't remember the name of it. Flora, what was the name of it? You remember?
I don't remember.
I also don't remember.
Was it transforming good intentions?
Yes.
Yes, yes, it definitely had good intentions in the name.
Yeah.
Yes. It was with Allison and Sarah. It was definitely meant for freshmen, but Flora and I took it as seniors. And we still gained like a lot from it. Especially like it was always fun to hear what the freshmen were thinking of, because they're so fresh and doughy-eyed. Overall, like all of the opportunities were great, welcoming to like all years, which I feel like is not necessarily the case of like the programs at MIT that are like a little more restrictive. So that was mostly what I had to say. I think I'll end there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ivana. That was fabulous. And then we have Flora.
Yeah, hi, thank you so much for having me. Hello to everyone. I see some familiar faces in the crowd. Whenever I talk about the PKG Center, I often start blabbering, so I'm going to try really hard to just take deep breaths and not say too much, but I'm just giving you a fair warning if that does happen. So let me share my slides. Can everyone see that? Awesome.
Yes.
So my name is Flora. I'm also a class of 2021, had the privilege of knowing and being friends with both Eleane and Ivana at MIT. I majored in mechanical engineering. I'm from Mystic, Connecticut. You might know it from the movie Mystic Pizza or the Mystic Seaport. Beautiful place. And I'm currently in sunny San Diego, California, working at Xylem, which is a water innovation company. Something that I'm really passionate about in my career, but also just in my life is water issues, everything from policy to technology and issues like affordability, but also more technical like innovation ideas. So I'll talk a little bit about how the PKG Center has really helped hone my passions into an exciting plan for the next couple of years that will really shape my path. So in the lower right here, you can see the new neighbors I have here in San Diego. They really are just sea lions everywhere. It's crazy. So I'm going to walk you through my PKG journey kind of year by year. So I met the PKG Center as an incoming first year student, as an FPOP participant, so a freshman pre-orientation program, or FPOP for short. The PKG Center sponsors about 25 students each year. At least this is how it used to be before COVID, where it was free. Students didn't have to pay to participate, and they were able to be introduced to MIT in a week-long program, while also engaging with the MIT community and the greater Boston community through service projects each day, and then workshops and different dialogues in the afternoons, and then going out to eat in the neighborhood surrounding MIT, as well as having fun events. So this photo is of my cohort, including the counselors and coordinators. There's so many friendly faces that I'm still so lucky to call my friends, and I'm just really appreciative for this kind of introduction to MIT. This community is something that I took with me for the rest of my years at MIT, and now even beyond, now that I'm outside of MIT. So the really cool thing about this FPOP is that we were able to not only meet new people, it's a brand new place, kind of get acclimated, but also be able to dive into topics I had never touched before. I came from a small town in Connecticut, came from a tiny high school. We had 65 students in our graduating class. I was really intimidated by going to college, even at a smaller institute like MIT. And so the opportunity to meet kind of like-minded but completely diverse individuals that were going to be my peers for the next 4 years was just an opportunity I could never have imagined would have impacted my path so greatly. And I'm so appreciative for that. And so it's not only the students, but also the staff that made it possible. So Ivana had mentioned Sarah Bouchard. She's like one of my biggest role models, not only while at MIT, but just in life. Like she's a very inspiring and formative person for me, and someone that I really look up to. So I really appreciate that opportunity to engage with her one-on-one, and she really made the PKG staff in general really accessible for me. And obviously I wanted to share that with my friends, so I really tried to get a lot of my friends to come as well. So that was kind of how Ivana maybe had gotten in. I was very, encouraging in a passionate way for people to come visit the PKG Center. My second year, I became a counselor for this pre-orientation program. This is another group photo, same place. It's a tradition with the new cohort and our counselor team. And it's a fun picture on the left of us at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, which is one of our evening activities where we were all imitating the statue that looked like it was dabbing, which happened to be hip at the time. But such a fun group of people, and my first leadership opportunity at MIT, and something I wouldn't have even applied for if not for kind of my peers that were already like counselors in the program. And then again, Sarah Bouchard really encouraging me to go outside my comfort zone and take that leap and apply to be a counselor. I honestly was interested in it, but wasn't going to apply because I didn't think I was qualified. And just that opportunity to be encouraged to apply, to be selected to be a counselor, and then have the opportunity to actually step into the leadership shoes and really execute such a well organized program and be part of such a cohesive team was something that really helped me along as I went along at MIT. So the next year in 2019, I was now entering my junior year. I became a coordinator for the FPOP, which was rebranded as Active Community Engagement. So the acronym changes from FUP to ACE. Both have, near and dear meaning to my heart, but really fun to, again, take on another leadership role that I didn't think I was qualified for, but really grew into as I held this role for 2 years and was able to not only learn how to take leadership in a group, in a small team, and then in the larger team once the first year students have joined, but also to really take my ideas from ideation all the way into execution, where if I had an idea I thought the program could put into place, it's something that my voice was heard at the table. We were able to have conversations about it, and I could see it happen while I was there, which was just really exciting and a really cool and unique opportunity. The second big thing that really transformed my 2019 year was that I was a PKG Summer Fellow. I was granted a $5,000 grant to go to Tanzania and work for the ACOA project, which is now called Moving Health. It's a nonprofit that is started by MIT students out of the D Lab, which is also out of MIT, making motorcycle ambulance trailers to really increase healthcare accessibility in rural areas of, at that time, Tanzania. And they have since started a pilot program in Ghana and have renamed themselves Moving Health. So if you're ever interested in anything having to do with healthcare, specifically community run, collaborative design work, definitely check them out. They're super cool. Still keep in touch with the team, really interesting. And for me, this was a formative part of my career selection, where I started MIT thinking I wanted biomedical devices. I was really interested in healthcare. I grew up with pre-existing conditions. It was something I thought I could make the world a better place by participating in. And this opportunity to go to Tanzania really opened my eyes to some other opportunities that I thought I might be interested in, and ultimately pushing me toward the world of water, which I'm now completely 150% involved in and excited about. Not that healthcare is not important, but it just wasn't the area that I feel like I was able to really exert my strengths and passions in a way that I thought was going to be kind of a long-term exciting path. So again, this is a picture of my coordinator and counselor team in the bottom right from ACE, and then on the left, it's the ACOA project team in Tanzania. And I did attach, couldn't help but attach some more photos from my trip in Tanzania. I really appreciate the opportunity to travel, more so because of the pandemic, where we're really not even allowed to travel out of our home. So the opportunity to do this community-based, community-driven, empowerment focused type of design work, where everything was done by the locals. We were able to get to have community forums. You can see in the bottom left where we went to the local bar to see what the men were talking about, what do they need, since they made a lot of the decisions. But then we are also doing a lot of testing with women. So you can see in that upper middle quadrant, the main instigation for this project was mothers needing transportation to the hospital when they gave birth. So we really made sure to include them as well. And in the bottom right, you can see a lot of people were just curious, including children, and just wanted to check it out. And that was something that was not only allowed, but encouraged. And the extra opportunity is in the upper right, another person who is an MIT student who is involved in the PKG Center, actually lives in Zanzibar, which is an island part of Tanzania. And we were able to visit her as well in some extra time. So what a cool opportunity to visit her home in Zanzibar, a place I had never even heard of before this project. And so finally, my last year, the year that was defined by COVID, but also defined by me selecting my career path, 2020, my last year as a coordinator in ACE, super fun, great group of people, but we did have to make it all virtual, which was a super big challenge, but also something that has really helped me now that I have started my career, and a lot of it is virtual. So doing that kind of virtual project management is really helpful and interesting, making sure people are heard, making sure everyone is involved. Just learned so much. And then I also wanted to shout out as a big thank you that Allison Hind from the PKG Center put me forward to have my profile done in MIT News, which really also helped with my career. So I appreciate that opportunity. And my mom was really proud. So, you know, that always counts. So finally, I wanted to just put a couple notes of what I'm taking away from my experience in the PKG Center. I don't feel like I maybe talked about a lot, but I really spent a lot of time in the PKG Center office. Even if I wasn't in a program, I really relied on that team as a support system at MIT, which is really important when you're trying to get through some really hard times. So I really appreciate not only like the moral support, but the mentorship, the guidance, the encouragement, and just sometimes a smiling face that's happy to see me. But in addition to the lifelong community, I also really appreciate the tools for developing and understanding identity. Before I went to MIT, that was like my identity was not something I really thought about in a complex way. And the PKG Center staff and my peers have really helped push me outside my comfort zone to get to know myself better and also understand how to get to know others in a more open-minded and just like more kind of loving way. And I really appreciate that. And then finally, I think I really did emphasize this today, is just leadership skills that are emphasizing empathy and empowerment, and not just kind of the typical whoever's the loudest in the room gets to be the boss type of leadership. These pictures are kind of a medley of things that are part of my life now. So the picture in the upper left is a picture of a PKG alum from 2011 who I connected with in San Diego, who's also passionate about water. So I've connected with her and she's like become another mentor I'm so grateful to have. So that's a super cool opportunity. In the bottom left, 2 more PKG alum that were my year 2021 that I visited in San Francisco a couple weekends ago, and it was so great to connect with them and see how they're doing. In the upper right, Xylem Ignite is part of a volunteer program that I'm involved in my company that works on engaging with youth about water, empowering them to kind of consider water as a career path. And one of my programs that I helped lead was a student masterclass, which included lectures from both Xylem faculty, Xylem staff, as well as MIT faculty. So a super cool opportunity to engage with some of the leading minds at MIT about water, as well as some senior leadership at Xylem, and share those opportunities with students. And then the last one is more my job now, where I'm working, testing different things about water technology, and something I'm really passionate about. And I think water issues are something that are really important, and I could go on too long about that as well. So I just want to wrap it up there.